Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the hulking Miguron Arma. Listen, Miguron makes a lot of really it's kind of a simple design aesthetic. It's always a handsome knife coming from Miguron, but they like to stay within certain parameters when it comes to their designs. This is a massive departure simply in that it is huge. The blade stock is very nearly a 1/4 inch thick, M390, and huge slabs of titanium with a gigantic backspacer, and all for a super competitive price. I don't think there's another knife on the market made the same way with similar dimensions for anywhere near what they're asking for this. I will link this down in the description. You can absolutely pick it up right now if you're, if they sell out, obviously you can't, but I think they're going to make enough that most people can get their hands on them. I'll link it down below. You guys can check that out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Miguron for providing this knife for review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This is just a fun knife. Let's do some size comparisons. A lot of people say, it kind of looks like a Ferrum Forge. Yeah, it does. It does have that look. But let's break down what a Ferrum Forge looks like. See the handle? Pretty classic knife handle. See the blade? Pretty classic blade. There's a lot of knives that look like this, right? It's way too similar to not just things from Ferrum Forge, but countless others, right? The uniqueness here is in the mass and weight of it. You guys know that I am a fan of the overbuilt, knife or knives in that territory, and not because there's any delusion about perceived excess durability and utility. No. If you didn't know, thicker materials on a folding knife, you're not really gaining much. It is fun, though. A big, chunky, thick knife, it always puts a smile on people's face. Whenever I hand a knife like this off to somebody and, in real life, they're always like, wow, that is crazy, right? So it's fun. It tickles the senses. But we'll get into more of that here in a second. Size comparisons. Any custom scales you see can be found down in the description under Original Go and others. So up against the AD10, you can see here what we're looking at. We're looking at an AD10 size knife in terms of, overall size, which by the way is 8.5 inches with a 3.75 inch blade and about 3.6 inches of cutting edge. But the difference here is in terms of thickness. This is what makes the AD10 look like a goofy little just toothpick, right? It's not, obviously. This is overkill, right? And excess geometry, for all the, the stressed out teachers in the audience who are just, oh my gosh, I have to inform people that the thicker geometry means that it will actually slow you down when you're cut. We know. Thicker geometry is definitely going to be more cumbersome in most situations that you use a folding knife in, right? A heavier geometry is great for something that is designed for an impact cut, like a hatchet, right? This, while I guess you could use it for that, it's just really not designed for that, and it's also not the most practical thing in almost any circumstance. It's just fun, right? But anyways, up against the AD10 and up against the Hogue Deca. Wait, why am I doing the Hogue Deca? Here's the Hogue Deca, but that wasn't the one that I was going to do. Up against the AD 20.5. So yeah, we've established it's a big knife, but in terms of length, PM2, para 3. There we go. And then finally, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. And, well, we already did the Hogue Deca, but there it is again. Okay. How's the action? One of the funnest things about this knife is the fact that, number one, it's very fall shutty, and a lot of that is because the blade is so thick. But it's also, it actually works really well as a flipper. This is tuned very, very nicely. Something that's always awkward about big overbuilt knives is that it's very difficult to find the right way to deploy it, the right leverage, right? Because if you get the detent too heavy, it takes the amount of leverage it takes to deploy it with different mechanisms is just, it ends up being kind of awkward. The Max Ace Hephaestus has always been, one of the most impressive overbuilt knives to me because it flips, and it flips really well. This knife also flips really well. It disengages well. It's very smooth. When you flip this thing, holy crap. That's so much blade flying out of there. Disengagement of the lock bar is also easy, and there's no double clutch. And yes, you can use this hole to deploy it. The detent is pretty heavy though, so if you're gonna do it, you really gotta get down low, and then you can get it. But there's enough room to manipulate this thing the way you want. And look at that. Listen to these noises here. Oh, man. That is so awesome. Just really satisfying. Just, oh my gosh. It's amazing that they got this down to the price that they did, because there's a lot more than just the action and the thickness that's impressive about it, right? Really, really cool. The action is just superb. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. If you didn't know, Miguron knives are made in China. The only reason this knife is as low as it is in terms of the price is because it's made in China. If we tried to make this in the United States, it would cost a lot more. Reference Medford knives. They are definitely more expensive. Now, some of those I think are a bit overpriced, but if you think that we can get these materials in these dimensions made entirely in the United States for the same price, well, no, you cannot. That's why this knife has no direct competition. In terms of materials, sure. In terms of dimensions, no. I don't think there's another knife on the market, even made in China, that has the exact same dimensions, made with the same materials. Heat treated properly, by the way, that's at this price point. I think this might actually be the lowest, which is really cool. Okay, carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Wow. You're gonna, listen, this is a lot to dedicate to in the pocket. You're gonna feel it. Length and height, PM2 Para 3. It's taller, longer, thicker, everything. Is there milling on the inside of the scales? Yeah, there is. That was nice of them to do that. Let's weigh it. It's probably one of the lighter heavy boys of all the overbuilt knives that I own. Yeah, well, it's still 8.5 ounces. Not the worst. I mean, I've got knives that weigh, like the PMP Alpha Beast, for example, weighs almost double, right? This is still substantially lighter than, I think, every other overbuilt knife I've got. I think all of the other ones that I can legitimately call overbuilt, at least in terms of material thickness, they're all over 9 ounces. So that makes this a little bit more, if you're going to carry something of this size, makes it probably one of the easiest overbuilt knives to carry, Still, obviously, something like the PM2 or Para 3 is going to be much easier to carry, but, hey, I think you guys get the idea. Let's go ahead and get out my tools for a hardware check. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I think that pivot is a T15 at least. I am correct. Nice job there with that. I would have been bummed out if they used a T8. That's just too small for this. I think the T15 works really well. And you know what? I think all of these body screws are T10. Let's check. They asked me about this. In fact, I'm going to tell you guys a secret. I actually named this knife. And this isn't like a... I've got some debris there on the pivot. This isn't like a Metal Complex and Miguron collaboration. They just asked me, what do you think that we should name this? And there's a reason that I called this the Arma. I brought this up on a live stream. This knife has a brother that's coming in the future. And so this is kind of like part one. But fully designed and conceptualized by Miguron. I didn't do anything else. I just thought, that would be fun. Yeah, these are all T10. There's two pocket clip screws, which I think these are maybe are T8. Yeah. Okay, so T8 pocket clip. T10 body and lock bar insert screw, T15 pivot. Minimal hardware, very easy to disassemble and maintain. Nice work. Nice work. Really nailing it there. For the people who want to buy this and have a no stress thing that if they want to can carry and use and make it easy to disassemble, right? I mean, for an overbuilt knife, because again, I'm not comparing this knife to like every other obviously utilitarian knife on the market, right? I know what knives like that look like. I know what efficiency looks like. I know what, an economic choice looks like. I mean, I've got 4,000 uploads, so the concept is not lost on me. So, but for people who are bored with that and enjoy, something else. It's nice that Miguron is making something that is reasonably priced, easy to maintain, right, and is a little bit more wieldy than the other things on the market. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness. I think it is literally just a hair shy of a 1/4 inch. I want to say it's like 235 or 240 thousandths. Let's see. No, it's 244 thousandths. So just a hair shy of a 1/4 inch. All right. Let's get into the meat and potatoes here. I love how this looks. It's got that, for some reason, the half pill shape on the frame has just become kind of a staple. We see it, obviously we see it on Medford knives. We see it on the artisan cutlery component. And it's on this and a number of other overbuilt knives. I don't know why that is. It's just kind of the mark, right? It just looks, it's got the overbuiltiness. But what we got here was Miguron's really cool texturing. Which is nice. I like that we've got some texturing. We've got a lot of finesse here. This doesn't feel like a big clunky where they put all the skill points into strength and nothing into dexterity, if that makes any sense, or nothing into intelligence, right? No, this is kind of like a buff wizard of a knife. It's really nice. It's so classy. And if you didn't turn it sideways, you would think that this was another nice, elegant Miguron design, which would have been boring, in all honesty, right? Now, I do like, actually, this satin finish is really nice on here. They did a really good job. And it's got the horizontal lines on this. I don't know if they actually did the flats by hand. Actually, they brought that up. I think they did. I don't know that for sure. But this looks like a hand rub satin finish, and then this is a belt satin, right? Nice jimping, nice knocked down edges right here. This is all functional, all ergonomic, all comfortable, and it has that, the big chunks of titanium and steel, and it's all so nicely machined. Even, there's even texture. Now, I think this is just a product of the machining, but let me show you in here. Even the pockets that are milled out have texturing. Every inch of this knife is just so nice. Now, that had to be done intentionally. Look at this. They've got pockets and areas around. That's really nice. That is so wild and unnecessary, but they do that, and it looks really good. Wow. Yeah, no sharp edges anywhere except for the blade, of course, but everything all the way around. The chamfering is done the right way so that this big rectangle of a frame doesn't feel like a big rectangle of a frame. It honestly is pretty handy. If I was going to letter grade this for ergonomics, I would honestly give it like an A- or an A. It really is comfortable. The only thing that would have made it more comfortable is the contouring. Outside of that, I mean, it's essentially perfect. And it's a nice look, too. The big opening hole in the fuller. Probably could have knocked down the inside of that just a little more, but it is knocked down a little bit, right? So it's not just a perfectly sharp edge. Really just good. And the choked up position, man, that just really feels great. I love that. This is thick all the way out to the tip. The flat carries out a good amount, but you know what? It is thick behind the edge. But let me tell you, it'll still slice, it'll still cut. You see? I mean, that's pretty impressive, right? It's not like it's hollow ground or anything like that, but these are, it's more of a tear cut, but it's slicing, and honestly, it's biting in pretty good. I mean, look at that. We got curls where the initial cut was. Sharp and well, and according to Miguron, these are heat treated in the same place as Riot knives. So this is M390. I don't think that's an appropriate steel at all for the geometry. But, for the people who are like, it needs to be M390 so I get the premium feels, right? There you go. It is. And they're hitting it the same as Riot, which is 5961. That's the industry standard. Now, I, like pretty much everybody else, don't really like to see M390 specifically at anything under 60. But given that, number one, that seems to be the standard, I mean, we certainly don't want it at 58. That's poo-poo. That's tinfoil. Right? I can't believe it's not butter, but it's actually not butter, right? That's bad. 5961, okay, same place Riot does it, but also, given the geometry, this is a hilariously inappropriate composition for this. The whole thing is obviously meant to be kind of over the top. But even for it being over the top and just way so far from anything, that's would be like a normal practical design, they're still hitting that M390 pretty good. And we're still getting materials that people like to see at this price point, and even well above it, right? I mean, for example, PMP, they make some nice knives. They have a D2 Kodiak, not the Kodiak, the D2 Grizzly. Same blade stock thickness, about the same size. They want $350 for that thing. Their M390 Kodiak, which does have some pretty cool texturing and stuff like that, this is thinner, right? Less total material, or maybe, I don't know, maybe about the same. They want $400 for that thing. Have you looked up what they want for the new Alpha Beast? Whoa, man. A lot of money, right? Pretty impressive. Really pretty impressive. I mean, the rest of the knife is really not overly complicated. Why the long backspacer? It's so that you're not touching the blade. In order to get this tall of blade on this, height of frame, they really needed to cover a lot of it with backspacer. And can you touch this little tiny edge right here? Yeah, if you dig at it. But I mean, unless you're like, then you're probably going to be okay. You're not naturally going to run into this. The only time that could happen is if you go to flip it and you miss and you drag your finger down the blade. Not likely, and I'll tell you why. It's because the flipper tab is straight out, and this is pretty much a light switch only flipper tab. Now, if you avoid the flipper entirely and just use the fuller, then you'll never have to worry about it. Honestly, they probably just should have adjusted the blade a little bit. You can see how the backspacer is U-shaped. That's to accommodate for the edge, to get it as close as possible. I imagine the reason they didn't run the backspacer all the way up is because how far down they wanted the edge on the blade, right, for the total blade height, they would have had to bring this area back just a little bit more, which they probably should have gone ahead and done, so the backspacer covered it completely. But it doesn't, so watch out for that. That's a little bit of an area, right? It's a little bit of an area. We have a very simple pocket clip. Probably should have had a space for lefties, but we didn't. Sorry, lefties. They just didn't do this. And it's got a nice ramp to it. Honestly, in and out of the pocket's fine. I really wish the pocket clip was slightly shorter, but it's not that big of a deal. We have a gigantic stop pin. Look at that. Beastly stop pin. Oh my gosh. Really cool. The lockout sound on this is so satisfying. We got a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. Really great lockup geometry. Absolutely solid. That blade is not going anywhere unless you're doing idiot things with your knife. Don't do that. And then, the lockup percentage is also very good. No detent lash. No pivot lash. Absolutely solid lockup. Just really nice. No double clutch, anything like that. Really, really cool. So again, a lot of times it's really hard for some people to wrap their heads around this. Why is this so, if it's not more durable, why is it thick? It doesn't have to be, right? It's nobody's trying to trick anyone. I think that the concept, like where people get lost, is they look at this and then they look at the community of people who are paying this much money for something and they say, this is obviously a community of idiots, and it's a community of sheep being herded by predatory knife makers. You could not be further from the truth. Everyone, including the makers involved, are aware of the extreme novelty theme surrounding things like this. You don't arrive at things like this without going through like years of enjoying utilitarian economic tools. We understand that. All of us who are actually buying these things. And so do the people who make them. They make them because the market just gets to a point where there's a certain chunk of us who just enjoy this stuff. And so Miguron, who does make nice premium, more practical cutting tools, goes, okay, people want these overbuilt things, sure. And so they know they're making these things and they're understanding like, hey, the thing we're making is actually less practical, right? And the people who are buying it go, yeah, it's okay. It's just kind of fun, right? So I understand the urge with some people to teach, right? To save the community of idiots who just must not know better. No, it's quite the opposite. This is all intentional. It's intentional by design and it's intentional by consumption, right? So don't worry. Now, to get to the ironic end of it, when we're talking about the competition for this knife, like I said, if there does exist another premium, you're not going to get this made in the USA. You're just not, right? Not with titanium and M390, not in these geometries. It's not going to happen, right? I mean, knock yourself out. If you can find one, let me know. But also, I don't think you're going to find a Chinese one, right? Not priced this low. You're just not with a 1/4 inch stock, not with the big, thick, milled pieces of titanium with all the texturing, not an M390, not with the backspacer pocket clip. It's just, this is unbelievable. Miguron, if you can keep making this knife for $295, are you kidding me? If you can keep doing this and keeping the price down, you're going to make a lot of people happy. This is a cool knife. Now, if you don't like overbuilt knives, it's not for you, period. But you would have known that right away, right at the beginning of the video, because I showed how thick it was. So if you're still here, it's because part of you is interested. That, or you just love the sound of my voice. And you love that I argue with hypothetical commenters in my head, right? They'll show up. They always do. But, if you're into overbuilt knives, I mean, this is a pretty widely acceptable aesthetic. It's actually, I mean, as far as these knives go, these types of knives, it's very ergonomic. It's very functional, right? All the quality's there. Everything is there. It's honestly, it's a bit better than a lot of the stuff on the market, but you're just paying like a minimum of $100 less. If you're into overbuilt knives, I highly recommend this. But that's like 1% of us, of knife people, right? It might be even less. It's like 0.05%. If you're literally anybody else, you're just not into this, then obviously it's not for you, right? Now, it is not a knife that I can recommend to everybody, nor would I ever, right? Nobody needs this. This is not, there's nothing in this world that you would need to do with a knife where this is exactly the right tool. It's just a thing that will work okay for a lot of stuff and is more just fun to carry. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. We don't have to create an imaginary role for this thing in order to enjoy it. You can just enjoy it, right? It is going to go in my favorite knives of all time playlist, and specifically because it's just a joy, right? It's just an absolute joy. So again, not recommended, but it gives me the good feels. So that's why it's going there. Miguron, thank you so much for providing this knife for review. Again, I will link this down in the description. You guys can check it out. Looking forward to the brother of this knife coming soon. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.